Welcome to episode number 233 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording on March the 17th, 2024. My name is Eric, host of the show based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and computer geek. As a first responder, witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events, started a small preparedness company to help people get prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
And I'm Jeff. I am based in Central Ontario. I'm a target shooter, ham radio operator, general overall handyman, and weather nerd.
And I'm the Frugal Gunny. Recently moved to Northern Ontario, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. I'm an off-gridder, a shooter, a hunter, fisher, gatherer, trapper type, and a generalist. And it's only recently that I came to accept that I'm a prepper.
I'm Terry. I live in sunny Central Ontario. I'm a starving indie author, a terrible hunter, a pathetic fisherman, and a proud Ford owner.
I had to put love that intro, Terry. That's fantastic. And we've got Don Mann with us this evening. So, Don, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Eric, thanks for having me on your show. My name is Don Mann. I'm a retired Navy SEAL. I served SEAL Team 1, SEAL Team 2, SEAL Team 6 for a little over 20 years, then a little over 25 years with the CIA. And survival and being prepared is the thing I'm passionate about. I taught desert, jungle, Arctic, and winter survival, and it's a real passion of mine. I'm very happy to be on the show and meeting you all.
Well, it's an honor to have you, and we're looking forward to getting some insight from you in the main section of the show.
Thanks, Eric.
Do you want to help support the show? Buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All the proceeds help cover our podcast costs.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few moments to submit a review wherever you found us. We want your feedback, even if it's bad. And we invite you to reach out and tell us all about something you learned this week. And you can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some prepared content for you in this episode. Strange for a preparedness podcast, I know. We're going to start out with some relevant news articles. We'll update you on what we've done with our personal prep since the last episode. Then we're going to get into the main topic where we dive into the weeds with Don. So let's move into the news.
All right, so I've just got one on here. We talked about this a few months ago. The volcano that erupted in Iceland. It kind of died off, sort of went away, but it's erupted again now, and it's unfortunately threatening the Blue Lagoon. That's I think their world famous. I don't know if it's like a hot spring or that kind of thing, but I mean people flock there for it, and so at this point in time, there's no indication that the ash plume is going to affect any flights at this point. I know not the last time, but the time before it did that, it caused thousands of flights to be canceled and redirected and everything. So I'm not hearing anything about that, but it's just been going on for a couple of days. We'll see where it goes from there.
Hey, and Terry.
Okay, so it's been confirmed that we're now living in Clown World. The Toronto police are advising people to leave their car keys at the front door to prevent home invasions by car thieves. You just can't make this stuff up, boys and girls. It's going on.
Oh boy, I don't know what to say to that. That's
no, that's kind of a defeatist attitude, isn't it?
Because wasn't it a couple of months ago? It was take your keys away from the front door so that they can't copy the RFID signal.
Yeah,
and now it's leave them by the door so they don't break into. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah. What more can you say
about
something like that?
Not much. All right. Let's move into what we've done lately for preps, shall we? Jeff.
Yeah, so I actually had a bit of a productive week this week. I was kind of slacking it for the last few weeks, but I did some food prep, some fuel rotation, got out, did some yard cleanup while the weather was still decent. I got my ham radio installed in the truck. Thanks, Eric, for the help.
Oh, yeah. It was fun.
And I went and picked myself up a brand new Jenner link that I found on Facebook Marketplace for an unbelievable price. I just couldn't say no, so I went and picked that up on Saturday. Now I just have to find an electrician that will install it for me, because of course the hydro company, you have to be a licensed electrician.
No, it's true, but worth having it professionally installed instead of eeny, meeny, miny, red cable, green cable, black cable. Yeah, someone that knows what they're doing with the hydrometer is probably a good idea. For myself, like Jeff mentioned, helped get that ham radio installed in the truck, slowly working away on Jeff's ham radio addiction. So he's on the local repeaters a little bit more. Now he's got a permanent install in his truck. Of course, in typical fashion for me, troubleshot some issues with my own ham radio equipment here. Had my main base station start to drift a little bit, and turns out it was about 500 hertz off, which is a lot, which explains why I sounded incredibly high-pitched and off frequency when I was talking to other people. So thanks to the help from a local ham here, got it all back on frequency and ready to rock and roll. And then to copy Ian, who's obviously not here this evening, got some rounds down range. So got out to the range and put some holes in paper. So that was fun. And of course, brought the handy talkie with me. So I had comms while I was doing it.
Oh, and for me, well, I spent a couple of days up at a friend's off-grid camp. He's got 75 acres up in the bush, and we were up there making maple syrup. While the sap was running, it's come to a grinding halt now that the temperatures have cooled off, but we were having a great old time making sap and eating. And then I see what else I did. A little bit of fuel rotation and fired up the generators, give them a little test run, and yeah, added a little bit of liquid gold to my food stores.
Very nice.
On my end, I picked up a seed bank with 100 different kinds of fruit and veg, and these are all heirloom seeds. So that was a pretty nice score, and I'm going to add that to my preps and maybe start using some of them if I can find the time to do some gardening. What else have I done? I've done some vehicle maintenance, a little bit of oil changing and tire rotation, fuel rotation, and I'm in the process of reorganizing my reloading components, my supplies into caches. Split it up into different packages that I can then share out and keep in different places. And I'm still working on adapting my mobility concept to my whole new work routine. And it's not terrible. It's working out pretty well. And speaking of that, a lot of work. So that's what I've been up to.
Very nice. See, Dave in the live chat's mentioning for his preps this week, he bought a Chevy truck. And then in brackets, sorry, Terry. So for Don, we poke at Terry quite a bit for driving a Ford.
I'm disappointed.
Just because.
Dave. Disappointed.
Well, I hope Dave, you get familiar with the interior of the dealership. I think you'll see it quite a bit.
Oh, says the guy that needed a Chevy to come rescue his Toyota the other day.
Yeah, whatever.
Awesome. Well, with that, let's move into the main topic, shall we? We've got Don with us this evening. He did his quick intro there about what he's done and his experiences. We're really excited to have him come out and talk to us today about his experiences, about what he can share about preparedness and mindset, and getting through some tough situations, and helping people just kind of get that mindset in place for preparedness and just everyday life.
No, Eric, it's really, really music to my ears to hear all of you talking about what you're going to do in prepping, and getting ready for, worst case scenario. And a lot of people don't think like that. And it's just really nice to hear. That's just part of your normal everyday week. I believe the same way you see it as well. I have been in some situations where I've been captured and I've had to survive. I've been in some situations in the wilderness where I've had to survive. And I firmly believe the biggest component that what I train on all the time, and I teach it and I push it in TV shows and whatever I do, is the mindset, which you all have, which I love hearing, but just the mindset. And that is, in the SEAL teams, we call it combat mindset. You're going to win. You might get hurt. You're not going to die. You're going to win. You're going to win this. No matter what you put your mind to, you've got mission success. You're focused on the mission. You're going to prevail and you're going to win no matter what. Whatever obstacles come your way, you're going to beat it. And I see that it sounds like you all have that. And in the survival, the prepping world, you have to always think like that. But it's not like what some people think, like, oh, you guys, you think the end of the world's coming. It's just a way of life. You know, when I go to a restaurant, I always need my back at the wall so I can see the doors, like the same old thing. People say, you're so paranoid. I say, I'm not paranoid at all. I just like to see what can happen. I'm prepared when it does happen. So it's nice to hear you all. So thank you for having me.
It's interesting you mentioned back to the walls and watching the people, counting the exits, I bet, and pre-planning how to get to one of those exits should something possibly happen. Not dwelling on the fact that it's going to, but being ready for if. Right?
That's right. That's right. And whoever you're with, family or wife or whatever, you it's your responsibility to take care of them. And if you don't have a plan and something goes wrong and they're hurt or killed, you know, I say it's your fault, you know, and people like us, we do have a plan and we think of what can happen, and it doesn't ruin our lives. It enhances our lives to think like that.
Totally agree.
That's well said.
Let's break down into some of the experiences you were talking about there, if you can. Even just about like being captured. What happened there? What was your mindset? What got you through that?
And, you know, in my captivity, I've been captured twice, but there was one time where everything was going really bad for us. We were up in Egypt and we're working with the Egyptian commandos, and we were doing what they were doing. They were doing what we were doing, just trading information, and they were showing off a bit, but whatever they did, we had to do. There were only 4 of us SEALs there. And so they'd take these snakes and hit them against the boot and peel the skin back and eat the snakes. So we'd do the same thing. Then they'd take these frogs, do the same thing, kill them on the boot and then peel the skin back and eat the frog legs. And then the venomous snakes, they did the same thing. They take the venom sacs out and then eat the snakes. So we were doing all that. For some reason, they didn't get sick, but the 4 of us got food poisoning pretty bad. But then we had to fly onto a mission that they didn't know about in the enemy territory, which I don't say the name of the country, but we all had food poisoning and we're throwing up and vomiting just pretty much nonstop. And we got in on our flight, and we had to do what's called a rubber duck, where you drop a rubber boat into the ocean and you skydive and follow it and get in the boat. The waters were infested with sharks because the Arabs, they would kill all these camels, and the intestines and stomach and innards of the camels would be in the water. And that's where we were, and the sharks were all over. So we didn't like hearing that. We got in that boat as quickly as we can get it off the pallet. And it's the middle of the night. And then we had to motor up to this piece of land. And we looked at it from about 500 meters away, just staying low on the boat, low profile, and looking for any enemy personnel. We didn't see any. So we got up closer, and we still didn't see any. So my buddy and I, we swam off the boat to the shore, scared of the sharks, of course. And we had to find a place where we could hide for 3 days, where we can see the aircraft coming and going and the ships coming and going. And the only place we could do that is if we dug a hole. And so we dug a hole, and it was surrounded by water on 3 sides of this little piece of land. But we dug a hole and we put a motor and a motorboat and all the things we didn't need for the reconnaissance of this mission, and we buried it. And we had to do this all before daylight, and we had diarrhea, we're vomiting, well, we're sick as could be. So we dug a hole for us, and we sat in that hole, and we put a piece of camouflage netting over our heads, so it looked like the desert floor. And we had long hair and beards at the time, and we had our rucksacks with us and our weapons, and we were just sitting in that hole with the camouflage netting over our heads. Nobody complained because we had the right mindset. We were going to win. But at high tide, the hole filled with water, and we couldn't leave the hole to use the bathroom, or, so the hole was filled with our sewage, basically. And we're up to our necks in the sewage for 3 days. Nobody complained. And then on day 3, sick as can be, I got IVs into those 3 guys as a medic. And they couldn't get one of me, but they put a lot of holes in my arm, and it just got infected. And on day 3, this Arab guy starts walking through the desert in this terrible sandstorm. And even though we were in a hole, we had goggles on, but sand was packed our ears and noses filled with sand. And we woke everybody up, and we're just as drifty and as weak as can be, still carrying on with the mission because nothing was going to stop the mission focus. We're focusing on that mission. But this guy walks by, and he gets bigger and bigger. His eyes get bigger and bigger, and he sees this camouflage netting. Then he sees 4 guys sitting there with weapons pointed up, and he raised his hands up, and he said something, and he ran off. And so we got caught. We knew he was going to get reinforcements that night. So as soon as he left, we jumped out of that hole, and as quickly as we could, we tried to get our boat and motor from the other hole. And 14 of his guys came over this berm, fingers on the triggers, AK-47s. They're all like young kids, though, and they pointed at us. And one of the guys who was with us, his name was Mark, he saw them. He said, guys, put your hands up. And something you never hear in the SEAL teams, put your hands up. And we put our hands up. We could have jumped for our weapons, and there'd be 4 against 14, and they would have slaughtered us. Or we could have jumped in the water, and they would have just sprayed and prayed, and they would have got us. And 2 of us had shovels in our hands. So we put the shovels down. We put our hands up, and they circled around us. And one of them was saying, down, down on the ground in broken English. We're going to shoot you in the backs. And we didn't even accept that as a possibility. We said, no, we're going home. One of the guys reached out for his rucksack, and they put 4 AKs up against his head. And we thought he was going to get blown to pieces. And they went and got an interpreter, and they came back the next morning. They just held us at gunpoint overnight. And the interpreter said, you broke the rules, you're on our land, and we're going to shoot you in the backs. Lay on the ground. We said, no, we're not going to lay on the ground. We're going to get back in that boat. We're going to inflate it. We're going back to America. And they didn't know where America was. They didn't know anything, really. And anyways, this went on for a day and a night. And finally, they just go. You can go. They let us go. And we came around that night. We're just out in the sea, as sick as could be, not eating and drinking and vomiting and defecating. And we came around the point of land, and we finished our mission, which I'm not free to talk about. And we won, and they lost. And what my favorite part about that, I'm really happy to have been involved in that. But my favorite part was that nobody complained. We knew we were going to see bad stuff as being a SEAL, and we wanted it, and we're prepared for it. Nobody said, oh, I should have been a pilot. I should have been a cook or something. And we just carried on, and life went on. And I've been captured twice. And it's just having that mindset we were talking about earlier, that you're going to win, and you can win. But if you don't have that mindset, it's so many things can go against you where you're not going to win. It's just you're in the enemy's hands. And so that's for prepping and surviving. For me, it's survival is having a mindset and then being physically prepared, like bring it on. I can take a lot. I can go a week plus without eating. I can go days without drinking water. And I've got the resources, and I know I can beat this. And to me, that's very, very important. And I work with a lot of people who are serious preppers. I learned so much from them. And I love their lifestyle, and it doesn't hinder their lifestyle in any way. It enhances their lifestyle, and they teach everybody they talk to. They teach their children. They teach all of us on what they're doing, and people pick it up as a hobby. So, and especially nowadays, my God, the world is. Who would ever think the world would be where it is now? But I think it's a really good hobby to have if you call it a hobby. So.
I like the word hobby because it helps disguise what we're doing, right? And it doesn't make it sound so onerous or something that takes over your entire life. It's just like you said, something that we do, little bits and pieces here and there throughout the day, planning for small little events that obviously helps you look after the bigger ones. But you're bang on with mindset. That's the number one thing that helps out in the preparedness world. Because if you end up in a bad situation, no matter what it is, yours was certainly bad, probably as bad as I could ever imagine. But having that mindset of, yeah, I'm going to make it through this. Yeah, I can get through this. I can get home. I'm not quitting. That's how you get through things. You could have all the resources at your disposal at the push of a button. But if you don't have that mindset and that just belief in yourself that you're going to get through this, you're going to make it happen. Like I said, you could have all the resources in the world at that push button, and it's not going to help you. You got to be able to get your mind into that proper zone to push through whatever scenario it is that you're facing, whether it be just a simple power outage, or a big storm that's coming through your way, or up to what you went through, which is just I couldn't even fathom that. It's an incredible story.
We were up in Alaska doing some winter warfare training, and we had a boat full of SEALs, 7 guys in a rubber boat, Zodiac, and they got dropped off a Coast Guard cutter, and they went out to sea for a couple of days. But then the storm out of nowhere came, and they had their MREs and they had the heaters and things like that, but they weren't prepared to be in this terrible storm for a long time. So then we lost communications with them, and we didn't find them. And we went out snowshoeing and cross-country skiing for days in a whiteout with avalanches everywhere. We couldn't find these guys, and it was looking really, really bad. And then we finally found them. They were in way better shape than we were. All they did, they tipped over their boat. They had a little bit of food and rations they shared. They had the heater. They were warm. They were comfortable. They were well fed, and they were telling jokes for a couple of days. And the worst, it was -70 with the wind chill. That's all they needed, but they knew they were going to do it. It wasn't even a problem for them.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned the telling jokes and I guess playing a few games. One of the panelists, he hasn't been on in a little while, but Alan always talks about in your go bag or your 72-hour bag or whatever it is that you call that bag that's going to get you either home or to your bug out location or away from trouble. He always talks about having some kind of entertainment with you or something to keep your mind kind of, in that state of, okay, things are semi-normal. Kind of a relief from the major event that's happening around you. But he always talked about having the cards or a little board game or something to keep yourself entertained. So it's interesting that you mentioned that telling jokes kind of helped get them through.
Eric, and this might be interesting. Perhaps it's probably just old information, but what we do when we go to these places, these countries, as soon as we'd get there, we'd establish a first line, a second line, and a third line of gear. And the first line of gear is what you have with you all the time. No matter where you are, you always have your first line. That first line is going to change depending on where you are. It might be a pistol, it might be a GPS, it might be a knife. But your first line, when you wake up, that's with you, and you don't go anywhere without that first line. But if you were attacked or something happened, you could get by for a few days with just your first line. And then your second line might be like your go bag, like you were saying. It might be your go bag. It might just have a little bit more in it. It might just have that water in it, a liter of water, maybe an MRE, maybe some snacks, maybe a map of the area if you're not in your area, and just a couple things so you could last for maybe, up to 5 days, 6 days. And then what we call the third line of gear, and this changes wherever you are or whatever the situation is. Third line is what you might keep in your truck or in your trunk or in your home. And it's a larger rucksack perhaps, and that'll keep you going for a couple of weeks. And when I've talked to civilians about this concept, that they seem to like it. They seem to like it because first line is we all go somewhere with a cell phone. So that's one piece of gear. A lot of us go places with a knife. You can't go everywhere with a weapon in a lot of these cities nowadays. But a first line is, depending on where you live and the situation can change, but you just knowing I've got my first line gear, my second line gear is right here, and I always have my third line gear in the truck. And I think that's a nice way to look at, thinking of the worst case scenario that could happen. Because if my house all of a sudden, and I took rocket hits or whatever, I can get in my truck and I've got my third line gear and I'm fine. Or I could run in the backwoods and I have my first and second line gear and I'll be fine. And and then it's nice for a family to put together. Okay, well, if my daughter's 16, she's just starting to drive, this is what you need in your trunk. Have your medical gear there. Have your, and have your second line, third line gear. I think that it's a nice way to help explain readiness for people who haven't heard that before.
I like it. Totally agree. Go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, I was going to say the other thing, like you said, those guys were out there and they were trapped, or whatever, however they got out there. I think part of that mindset in that game too is they know that help is coming. They know that you're not going to leave them there. And they know that I just need to fight maybe another day or another day and a half, and I'm going to get rescued and they're going to come and get me. And I think that plays big in the mindset of having that quote unquote will to live.
I totally agree. Absolutely. A friend of mine was in a situation, and he was in Iraq, and he was the driver was in Iraq, and the driver had body armor on, but he didn't have a helmet. And my friend had body armor on, and he was in the back seat, and the passenger had body armor, but they were in a thin-skinned vehicle without armor, and they were, in a war zone. And the worst thing happened. They got stuck in traffic. Of course, you always tell people, make sure you don't get too close to the car in front of you. So if something happens behind you and you got to get out of the way quickly, you can swerve away. But anyways, they got stuck in traffic, and traffic got in front of them, behind them, on each side. And so now they're thinking this is a terrible place to be. Of course, a 9mm round can go through a thin-skinned vehicle like nothing. And then a billboard was in front of them, and a guy popped up with an AK-47, just started shooting through the vehicle. My friend just took his weapon calmly, and he shot through the vehicle and got the guy. He was calm. But then what happened? The vehicle right to the right side of them opened up the doors. There was a van, and two people with AK-47 started shooting him. And my friend knew that the driver, if he was shot in the head, they were going to be killed because he had body armor on, but he didn't have a helmet on. So my friend got up behind him from the back seat and put his body armor to protect the person's head and got him out of the traffic. And he was shot 3 times doing this, all underneath his body armor because he was bent over. And his name was Joe Neely. He's a SEAL. He's a good friend of mine. And then Joe got him out. Joe had 3 bullet holes in him, but they got out of danger. And Joe had 2 of the rounds removed in country and the other one removed in Germany. Went back to work 6 months later. He said it was no big deal. I just did what I had to keep the driver alive, just thinking, to keep him alive and to stay safe and get out of the danger area. It's just the mindset, but if somebody's shooting a lot of bullets through your car and you're trapped in traffic, a lot of people wouldn't think like that unless they really developed a highly fine-tuned, powerful mindset.
It's interesting. The focus on mindset, I like it because it absolutely, that is the key to getting you through a whole bunch of situations and getting you through anything in life. Is little small things up to major things like you just described again that I couldn't ever imagine. But having that mindset, pre-planning, what if this happens? How do I do it? What do I do? Where do I go? How do I react? And getting your mind just into that thought process of what am I going to do? Why am I going to do it? Where am I going to go? How am I going to act? How am I going to control my emotions in that scenario? It's amazing how once you get into that scenario, that just sets in and takes over, and you do what you have to do and you carry on. Again, I couldn't ever imagine even the first scenario with that guy hopping up from the billboard, let alone the other group of them coming out from the van on the right. But like you said, the mindset got them through it, and that's key to anything preparedness.
Also, I'd like to add that I'm telling gruesome, terrible stories, but that mindset helps in everything I've ever done in my life. I'm in my mid-60s now, but I apply it to extreme sports. And
right.
When I was an early triathlete, I was doing the early Ironmans. And I used to always think, okay, have a macro goal, have some big goal, set it, and then a series of micro goals to reach that macro goal. And then have the mindset to know whatever that goal is, no matter how big it is and how lofty it might appear, that you can do it. And you really can if you have a series of micro steps that reach you to get to that macro goal. But then when you reach that macro goal comes down to a lower level. And now it's just one of the micro goals you need for the next big macro goal. So I did this with the sport. I did over 1,000 competitions with this as a mindset. So I'd always try to make the next competition bigger and harder. And they were going to 600-mile competitions. But when I was doing the Ironman competitions, one of the earlier ones, I was thinking, okay, I did it 11 hours and 41 minutes. That's only a half a day. If I could do one Ironman in half a day, I should be able to do two in a day. I wasn't very smart, but I had a powerful mindset. So I took that Ironman, brought it down to a lower level, and then the next macro goal was 2 Ironmans. And the goal was, who's going to stop running? Who can't put one leg in front of the other? Why in the world would I not be able to do that? No matter how sick or hurt I'm feeling, I should be able to put one leg in front of the other. And I did pass out at mile 32 on the double marathon, and I was coughing and choking and seeing the white spots and coughing up a little bile, and then I passed out. But when I woke up, I saw other cyclists and runners going by. I was thinking, why am I sleeping outside? Then I realized I was in this double Ironman competition. I said, I better get up. I got to go finish the race. And what that lesson taught me was, sometimes things get really, really, really hard and you don't think you can do it. You don't think you can do it. But I don't mean it to sound jokingly, but the truth was, all the times I thought something was too hard, I was wrong. Because in that case, I passed out. My body got the sleep it needed. I had this short power nap. I woke up and finished the double Ironman. And that lesson lasted me a lifetime, because now I think nothing's ever too hard. If it's too hard, and it's absolutely too hard, you don't think you can do it anymore, your body will pass out. You'll get the break you need, then you can keep on going. So then the next big goal is you crush that macro goal, bring that down to a smaller goal, and make the next thing a bigger macro goal. And so I think that works real well for prepping as well. Like, now I'm planning food. Now I'm doing the generator checks. I'm checking the gas. All these micro goals. At some point, the macro goal is I could live off the grid for 2 months, or as an example, for instance. The micro goal thing, I think you could put whatever you want as a macro goal. If you're a banker or cook or whatever it is, you could set some big, high, lofty goal up there, and you'll reach it with having that powerful mindset and a lot of micro goals to reach to that macro goal.
Well, like the old saying goes, if you do all the little things, the big things aren't so big anymore.
Yeah.
One of the things I admire about the SEAL training and induction routine regimen that you went through, and that I read about and hear about, it's well celebrated, is that you seem to have found a consistent way to impart mindset. And that's a big thing. I think we all have a lot of lessons we could learn from that, how you train people and how you somehow get that mindset through to them. And then I know you do have a fairly high failure rate. And as we do here in many things, being out in the outdoors, very high failure rates. It's the reason why we get strong, is we fail and then we, kind of micro failure along all those micro goals. We readjust, we shift, and we go at it again, and then we keep achieving. What is it that you think is the secret to the training that you received to impart that mindset, and what can we in the civilian cake eating world pick up from that?
Well, I don't. I would never, ever think you're in the cake eating world for sure. But I know what you're saying though. But to want to go to SAS, SBS, or Delta Force, or SEALs, or anything like that, I think you have to have a mindset that you can do it anyways. So you kind of have your mindset there, and then it just gets empowered and stronger once you're finished training, going through training. It's infectious as well. When you surround yourself with people that have that can-do attitude, like I can do it, that rubs off, and it's infectious. Same thing happens if you're with a lot of people sit around the couch and saying, I don't feel like getting up today. I don't feel like going to work today. If I go to work, I'm going to do a halfway job. I mean, it's infectious. And I'm a host of a TV show where I teach this stuff, and it's called Surviving Man, MANN. And I push these people so hard. And it's all about shooting. We have survival courses. We have survival evolutions, have them making lean-tos and staying out in the woods for a couple of days, catching chicken and catching rabbit and eating it and distilling their own water. and it's a lot of fun. And it's eye-opening to so many people. But the mindset, I believe, if you're around somebody with a powerful mindset, to absorb that from them. For me, I've got a bunch of people like that in my life, but the most well-known, most famous person, I've never met him, but his name's Reinhold Messner. And I tried climbing Everest a couple of years ago, and I came really, really close to dying because my lungs, my brain cavity filled with fluid. It's called Hape and Haste. But Reinhold Messner was the first person to climb Everest solo, and his first person to climb it without oxygen. And if I showed him the list of 1,000 or so events I've done, he would laugh and he'd say, "Oh, yeah, you like running around the park." Well, here's what I do. I take that backpack and I climb some peak in the Himalayas. It's never been climbed before. And I do it without oxygen. I do it solo. And I tell my friends and family, I should be back in a couple of months. So I believe a guy like him, and I hope to meet him someday, a guy like him, he knows how to reach way, way, way deep down inside. And he's got this source of energy that we all have, but he's got the ability to reach down and grab it. And he's climbed all the 25,000 meter peaks there are. He's climbed all the hardest peaks in the world. And now he used to be called the greatest mountaineer in the world, but now he's being called the greatest mountaineer the world will ever know. And that's only because of his attitude and his mindset. Like, I'm going to do it. And he does it alone. I can't even imagine some of the things he's done. And so you get around a person like that, or you think about a person like that, I think it rubs off. And if one person, say a small company or a group of friends or a club or something with 6 people in it, if one person felt, I can do anything, nothing's going to stop me. I'm going to train. I'm focusing on the mission no matter what. Each and every day, I'm going to do 4 things. I'm going to get stronger every day. Something will make me stronger every day. I do a bunch of push-ups. I'll do CrossFit. I'll go to my gym. But every day I'm going to get stronger. Every day I'm going to get faster. Most importantly, whatever it is in life you're going after, every day you're going to get smarter in that category. And then most importantly, every day do something good for somebody. And if that group of people, say a group of 8 people, if the leader every day was getting stronger and the teammates saw it, and every day he's doing something to make himself faster. If he could do 100 sit-ups in 2 minutes, now he's doing 105. And he's researching and learning. Every day he's getting smarter. But then he's helping somebody every day. Now that's the person everybody wants on the team. And if that one individual did that, it's going to rub off to the other individuals. And if all 8 or so people on that team were focusing on the mission success, had a macro goal they were all going toward, who's going to beat them? I mean, everybody is giving everything they had to that mission. And I think on a smaller scale, if you're a school teacher or if you do talks, this attitude does affect people. And I know it does. I do talks all over the country. And, even years later, you'll hear from somebody, yeah, I felt so bad because I spent a lot of time doing nothing and now I'm doing more. And I wish I did more earlier on in my life. I think we could all make a difference and spread this mindset, which I think is pretty important.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I think you could really employ that when we talk about mutual assistance groups and getting a group together to help in the preparedness world. Having that mindset, like you said, it's infectious. One person has it, pass it to the next one, pass it to the next one. The whole group mentality then kind of kicks in, right? And everybody kind of feeds off of each other. And if you have that positive kind of energy and that mindset to push forward and get through whatever scenario it is that your group is trying to prepare for, because we all are preparing for different things, as we all think different things could potentially happen. But just getting your group set into that mindset, whether you're the leader of that group or you're not, you don't have to be the leader of the group in order to start that infection of mindset, right? It can be anybody in the group that starts it, and then everybody else picks up from that and they start going. Because if you turn into that doom and gloom, we're terrible, we're not getting anywhere, we're all just going to die, that's infectious too. You got to be careful with that, right? You want the positive mindset to be out into that group, and it's just amazing to watch that kind of build and mold the group into a group that is going to be resilient, is going to get through anything, and is going to just prosper in whatever scenario it is that is thrown your way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your books, because you've written a few. So
that's another thing I could put in that category. I was a terrible student. I never wanted to write a book. I never even wanted to go to English class or write a paper. And but I got into the sport of adventure racing, and I got into it full bore. So I was teaching it. I was producing these races and racing all over the world in these adventure races. So this politician, I live in Virginia. This politician from Virginia came up to me and said, "Don, you ought to write a book on adventure racing." I said, "Quentin, I don't want to write a book. That's the last thing I want to do is be behind a computer writing a book." He said, "Seriously, you're the only one who races at this level. You produce these races and you teach people at this academy. Why don't you write a book?" I said, no way, no way. He said, "I'll tell you what, you put it on tape, I'll get it typed up for you." So I had these 3x5 cards, and I just read off the cards and read into a recorder. And this lady from Chicago Sun-Times typed it up. Before I knew it, the macro goal was to try to finish this book. And I did it. And then the Navy asked me to write a survival manual. I said, "No way do I want to write a survival manual." I wrote one book. It was kind of a pain. I don't like being behind the computer. Had to do all that editing and all that. They said, "Well, we'll give you an extra year. We'll pay you up front. The Marines have one. The Army has one. The Air Force has one. The SEAL teams don't have a survival manual." I said, "Okay." So then I had a macro goal. Survival manual. Okay, now I had to learn so much to write it, because I didn't just know that stuff off the top of my head. It's a perishable skill, as we all know. Those skills go away. But it was fun. I really learned a lot about the fruits and the vegetables and plants you can eat and animals you can eat and purification methods. I learned a lot. And then I kept taking that macro goal, bringing it down. Okay, now I'm going to write a series of books. Now I'm going to write fiction and nonfiction. And right now I'm working on book number 23. My English teacher would be rolling over in her grave if she ever thought I would read 23 books. But it's on women warriors, women, snipers, and women who've made a big impact in history for what they've done as a warrior. So it's been a fun process. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, that's awesome. 23 books. Wow, that's a good number of books. So you've got one, Reaching Beyond Boundaries, a Navy SEAL's Guide to Achieving Everything You've Ever Imagined. So you offer some guidance on achieving success in that book. Any key principles or strategies from that book that maybe you could share with the listeners?
Well, Eric, that is my favorite of the books because I got to talk and to learn from a lot of other people who helped me put that book together. But I don't want to sound redundant, but a lot of things I've been talking about on this show is basically comes from that book. Or actually, my talks, they're only an hour long, so I wanted to put more information out there. So that's why I wrote the book. And so a lot of what I'm talking about is coming from that book.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we need to get the book, is what you're saying. I like it.
No. Just I wouldn't want to.
I get it.
Some other stories are in there, of course.
It's on my list. It's on my list.
No, thanks.
Go ahead.
I was going to say for Surviving Man, I was with a gentleman. Actually, he was put in a prison for 8 months. This a couple of weeks ago, I was with him. He's a big Australian guy. He was stabbed 3 times in the chest. Actually, what he does, he goes after kids who've been abducted and being sold. He's a really good friend of mine, and he's about 320 pounds. And they captured him, they stabbed him, they put him in a prison. And for 8 months, he had to stand up. When he used the bathroom, it was standing up. And talking to a guy like that, you think your life was just at peace and the most comfortable life you ever have. So I think that's another good example of no matter how hard things might be, you don't have to look very far to find somebody who's had it much, much more difficult. And they got through it, so you're going to get through whatever you're going through. But he's a good reminder, and he's just a great guy. And and he was captured and left. He went from 320 pounds to 160 pounds in his 8 months. And his stories are, I just couldn't give up. I couldn't give up. They thought I was going to die. I couldn't give up. He did that for 8 months. I was captured for a couple of days here and there. I mean, that's not anything compared to what he went through.
He's back to mindset again, right? That's what got him through it.
That's what it was. That's all he had, because he wasn't eating, he wasn't drinking. He was sick as can be, but he just wasn't going to give up.
It's wild. I couldn't even imagine the stories that you've got. I couldn't place myself in them. That's just, yeah, it's wild, but it's good to hear too that something like mindset can get you through scenarios like that. So certainly the things in the emergency preparedness world, like our listeners are going to be faced with, I don't think are going to be anywhere near that level of traumatic. So knowing that mindset can get you through that major event like that, it can certainly get you through anything that we're getting prepared for sure.
Yeah. I think it's important when you look at the extreme examples, then you bring it to your life, saying things aren't that bad. I'm going to be ready. It's not that hard to be ready.
Oh, you're 100% right. Are there any specific habits or routines that you follow in order to stay prepared for any kind of unexpected challenges?
I am very aware of my surroundings. I'm very, very aware of my surroundings. I'm constantly on the lookout, and I'm not paranoid by any means. Like I mentioned, I like to sit with my back to a wall in a restaurant. I don't like crowds because people are different nowadays than they used to be, and we don't know who is around us. So I don't really like being around crowds. And I feel myself getting anxious if there's a lot of people around me, because, you just don't know who it is. So I'm aware. I keep my doors locked. Of course, I have weapons. I have food. I have water. I'm if someone says, okay, you're stuck right now for 2 months, I'd be okay. I'd be fine. I have a generator. I think about these things. I live on a mountain. Only 7 of us live on this mountain. And anybody who drives in this road, and if we don't recognize a vehicle, we all let each other know. So we trust our friends and our neighbors. And so my habits are, it's nothing I have to make myself do. It's just the way I live, because I feel comfortable living that way.
It's interesting that you mentioned the neighbors, because I've found in the preparedness world and doing reaching out to people, trying to educate, doing the podcast like this, a lot of people have the view that the preparedness world is very closed off and very antisocial and doesn't like to talk to anybody else or talk to their neighbors. You want to hoard everything yourself and have the plan for you and you alone. And we try to kind of push that on the show that, no, get to know your neighbors, get to know the people around you, get to know the resources that are in your community, because when things go south, you're going to need to rely on other people. You're going to need to rely on those local resources. Being self-contained, while it sounds like a fantastic idea, maybe it's good for a couple days, but eventually you're going to need some help. You're not going to get through things 100% by yourself, sitting in the basement going, all right, I've got it. Right. Having that support around you is huge. And it's interesting to hear you mention the fact that the neighbors all look out for each other. You see that car coming down the road that you don't recognize. You're on the horn with the neighbor next door going, hey, is that car for you, or do we recognize that car, or what are they doing here? And just having that awareness of your surroundings is worth its weight in gold, and something that I think some people newly into the preparedness world don't realize, and they think it's hoard stuff, keep to yourself, don't be social, and just don't people, I guess is how Pierre would put it if he was here.
Yeah, and also you might need their help, but thinking they might need your help. I know I have some elderly people who live here, and I'd be there in a heartbeat if they needed anything, and I could get them out of the situation they're in. And we did have a situation here a couple of months ago. There's a white van that came up the mountain, and one of the neighbors confronted, "Who are you guys?" And they weren't, and had the hat down low, and they wouldn't answer. And so they texted the rest of us on the mountain. I said, I'll go follow up on this. And I'm always armed. So I went down to the bottom of the hill to make sure they didn't get down. So then I figured I'd drive up and I'll figure out who these people are. And there's a white van on the side of the mountain, and I didn't want to look threatening, and I wasn't trying to be threatening, but I put my vehicle in front of them so they couldn't get away. I said, "Hey, how you guys doing?" And one person was hiding, and the other one only let me see his eyes with a hat over his head. I said, "How you guys doing?" They said, "We're just looking for some paperwork. We're okay." So I called 911 right there.
Mhm.
So I let them listen to everything. I didn't know if he was pulling out a weapon or anything. I said, "Do you need some help?" And then I gave the 911, the license plate number. I told him it was a white van. And I was stalling them. And I was ready to take action if I needed to. I didn't want to. The first thing is to de-escalate and be non-threatening. And I had my engine block between me and the threat, which is what to do, because the engine block prevents rounds. So I knew what I was doing, but I was pretending like I was just trying to find out what was going on. So it was very, very suspicious. And then another person popped up. They also had a hat on the head. They said, "Well, we just got lost. We're going down the mountain." And I said, "Well, I'm going to have to back up." So I went down a mile backwards, really, really slow, giving the police time to get there,
Mhm.
talking to them the whole way. And it's just taking care of my neighbors. We had somebody on the mountain that didn't belong there, and we were all there for each other. And I was ready to, I was able to get in my vehicle and go assist. But I just want to be there for family and friends. I can't even imagine. Imagine if any of us, something bad was going to happen, whatever the scenario might be, and we weren't able to help because we weren't prepared. I mean, that would be the worst feeling in the world. I know everybody on this panel is not like that, but we know people who are like that. And I would never want to be in that situation where I wasn't prepared to take care of a situation where somebody was in trouble like this.
Oh, and it's interesting that you mentioned you line the engine block up and you engaged in a conversation and you attempted to de-escalate. That's all things that I'm sure you've learned in your years of experience and working in some really crazy environments and receiving some really intense training. But it comes again as pre-planning, mindset. You knew what you wanted to do. You knew how you were going to set it up. You knew how you wanted to talk to them. You knew you went into it knowing you were going to try and de-escalate things and appear to be non-threatening to try to calm them down and make them think that you were just inquisitive as to what they were doing there and not combative towards them. But it all comes back to mindset again, right? You had, from what I'm hearing in the story, you had your mindset in place. You knew what your plan was going to be. You knew how you wanted to engage, and you knew what your end result was going to be. And that's an awesome example of how having everything already set up and knowing how you're going to go at something and just having it play out exactly how you had hoped and being calm, cool, collected through the whole thing. Fantastic. Plays out perfectly.
Yeah,
and
being able to see them as you're backing down a mile down the mountain, I could see them the whole time too. And I wasn't going to let them get behind me. So just being ready. No,
that's fantastic.
So now that you opened that can of worms, the inquiring minds want to know, what was the end of the story?
Okay, so that was a rental van, and they were supposedly selected by some contracting company as subcontractors to go do a job on the mountain. Their IDs weren't verified, but the police told us they were contractors who were actually lost. But that doesn't explain to me why they were hiding. They wouldn't let us see them. They wouldn't answer questions. So maybe that was a story they told the police, but I don't believe it. I don't know who they were or why they were there still.
Sounds like they had a good pre-planned backstory.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. That's interesting.
On that story note, Don, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
A lot of stories about warriors, they end up having that discussion about the gut instinct. How much of the gut instinct is acknowledged in the SEAL community? Is that something that you will knowingly verbalize and say, "I'm running with it because my little gut instinct is telling me to do this"? Is that something that you have seen?
I believe there is a gut instinct, but I believe that gut instinct is just an accumulation of experiences and things you've been taught, people telling you stories that they've gone through, and it builds a gut instinct. So when you get that gut instinct, it's based on a lot of past experiences, a lot of knowledge, and some instinct, but based on things you've learned the hard way, other people have learned and discussed with you. Because my gut instinct before I went into the teams wasn't the same as when I got out. So I think it builds based on your experiences and the training you've received. You know, the one thing about a car engine, I think that's such a valuable lesson. There's two places in a vehicle. If there's a threat, an enemy, and that enemy is between you and the engine block, you've got cover. And twice in 5 years, gas stations in the US are really bad places now. I guess they are a lot of places, but twice in the last 5 years, I've had people come up to me, two guys, one at each instance, and ask me for money. And one said, "I hate white people." I said, "Well, the guy is about 2 feet taller than I am, I guess." And I was pumping gas. He said, "You got any money?" So I said, "No, I don't. I use credit card." But I said it in the same tone. I think I was edging him on subconsciously because I didn't like the guy. But anyways, he took a step toward me, and I was next to my gas. You know, I had the gas filling up in my vehicle. My door was open. My weapon was 2 feet away from me. And I think I started smiling. I was thinking, if you take another step, you're going to lose big time. And I was disappointed he didn't, I hate to say, but I shouldn't say that, but you're just so ready and you're so confident. If a threat's coming up at you, to know inside you're going to win, it's a big, big plus. And the bad guy is going to lose. And that all goes back to the combat mindset. But the gut instinct is, this guy's walking over to me. Yep, they get away with all this stuff nowadays, these crooks and robbers at gas stations. He's coming up to me. I've got a weapon within arm's reach. I mean, he's making a big mistake. And I didn't want to come across as some nut or anything, but I was just so confident that I was almost disappointed nothing happened, you know. So I mean, I know that's kind of wrong in some ways, but
it speaks to the mindset again, right? Like you're at that stage of, you've built that mindset up to, I am winning this battle no matter what.
Yeah. That
the battle didn't happen, and now you've got that mindset and that energy build up. You're like, well, now what do I do with this energy? Right? So I get the point of view, or the disappointment of, well, nothing happened, but like I was so ready for that to occur, and I was so ready to be triumphant and win that, and then to have nothing play out. I get the coming down and the, well, what do I do with that energy and that build up and that momentum? Now you got to find a release for it, right? Mm-hmm. So I totally get the I wish something happened, and you know, it's good that it didn't, because nobody wants to see violence play out, but it's reality. Sometimes it has to happen, right? It has to happen sometimes, unfortunately.
It is. De-escalation is the goal, you know. Yeah, but, for sure.
Yeah. If possible, de-escalation is key, but having that ready mindset and that, you know, I'm going to win this, and you just made the worst mistake of your life, that's going to get you through it, right? So it's all boils back down to mindset. I love it. It's this is fantastic. I love this topic. Any upcoming? Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was going to say, just
go for it, Jeff.
Kind of revert back to the weather stuff that I deal with a lot. You know, weather's very unpredictable, just like people are anymore, just being so unpredictable. And, you know, you say, hey, you know what? Got big storms coming. You might want to hunker down, you know, be a little bit safe. And then the big storms don't happen, and everybody gets revved up. Oh man, you told me it was happening and it didn't happen. The fact that it didn't happen is a good thing. You didn't lose your house. You didn't have your car get damaged by hail. You didn't. What are you so wound up about? Like, just because it didn't happen doesn't mean that's a bad thing. It's really a good thing. And same thing in your case, you know. Yeah, you were ready, and you were prepared for the worst, and probably at the end of it, the best case scenario came out of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I see a good analogy there with the weather. Yeah, you get all prepped up, you have your house all ready, and nothing happens. All that work for nothing. Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, I like that. That's really good. You had mentioned you got a new book coming out shortly. Any other projects, initiatives, anything you're excited about that you got coming out the pipe? Any speaking engagements or other endeavors? Or
I do periodic speaking engagements, and I guess the next one's going to be in New Orleans, and there's one coming up in Texas. But the thing I like Surviving Man a lot because it's all about actually survival, physical conditioning, shooting, adventure, and obstacle course racing, and SEAL training, and mindset. But I also started this other, excuse me, another thing called the Mission, and for all these years, people always ask me how do I become a Ranger or a SEAL or a football player or something, and now I've got it narrowed down to those four. Every day get stronger, every day get faster, every day get smarter, but most importantly, every day do something good for somebody. And so now I did this with some banks in Indiana, Texas, and Minnesota. I present that lesson to them, and I teach them how to prepare a mission like SEAL mission. But their objective is, okay, go out and help somebody with significant awareness, raise significant funds, something you're very, very passionate in doing, and go help people. And so, for instance, we had challenge warriors. We had people with missing children. We had people who really wanted to help animals, animal cruelty. But people would have these causes, and whatever their cause was, if it was a good humanitarian cause, would show them how to prepare a mission and go out and raise great funds for that cause, a great awareness for that cause. And that's what I'm really passionate about right now, because there's so many causes out there that we could back. And for a group of people with the mindset and everything, knowing you're going to make a big difference and presenting a check or helping out an event that's going to help them, that's what I'm really focused on right now, just trying to help, because I hope maybe in 5 years, maybe there's 30 teams out there that have been training year after year after year, helping different groups that need our help, humanitarian assistance in some way. So that's really got my attention now. I'm really excited about that.
No, that's fantastic. It's some good causes.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned TV shows a couple of times that you host. How many and what are their names?
Well, a friend of mine about 8 or 9 years ago, he asked me if I'd do a TV show with him. And I told him, yeah, I would. I didn't think it would ever happen. And it was 5 years ago. Then you got a sponsor 4 years ago. It was going to happen. And then we did make it happen. He said he wants to call Surviving Man. And for me, just to teach people different physical conditioning in a hard way, like SEAL training. So I really, really, really pound hard on these guys and ladies. And then and Randy Couture was my co-host the first year. He was an MMA champion. And our America's Sheriff was my co-host the second year. Mike Glover, who's a CIA Special Forces guy, he's my co-host 2 weeks ago. And so we take them either to Las Vegas. We've been to South Carolina. We've been to Georgia. We went to Belize. I had them diving 140-foot dives with sharks everywhere. And they did ship attacks. But we really, we this message that we're all talking about tonight, I instilled that into these people. And it's called Surviving Man. And because of my friend who lives in North Ontario, Len Asper, when he told me he lived in North Ontario, I said, that's where my favorite musician lives. And it was Neil Young. And he said, Neil Young, that's the greatest musician alive. He got us on Pursuit TV throughout Canada and US. But it's called Surviving Man. Then there's a show that broke off of that, Surviving Man All-Stars. So we just did season 3 of Surviving Man, season 2 of Surviving Man All-Stars, and season 1 of The Mission. So those are the 3 shows I'm part of. And I'm a movie consultant for American Smuggler, and that's a movie that's being developed right now about the exploitation and stealing and taking little children from their homes and selling them, and the El Chapo capture. And it's a true story. So I'm helping out with that movie. If it becomes a movie, we're not sure yet, but I'm helping out with that.
Oh, fantastic. That's That's a good number of shows, and I'm sure it's going to be a good movie. I'm sure that'll come out. So I look forward to seeing it once it gets published.
Oh, well, thanks. Hope it does.
It's awesome. Any final takeaway messages that you'd like the listeners to remember from the episode today, or any final thoughts?
Well, Eric, it's a breath of fresh air listening to you all speak before the show and getting to hear how you're all thinking. I love the way you think, and you're just like good guys hanging out together and passing along good word, and you made a hobby of it. And I know what you're doing is spreading, and it's contagious. And I just really respect and appreciate what you all do.
Well, appreciate that. We're having lots of fun doing this. 233 episodes in. It's been quite the ride. It's been a lot of fun, but learned a lot, and hopefully spread some realistic kind of information out to everybody. So that's kind of the goal here. We're not fear mongering. We don't like doing the whole the big huge apocalypse is coming and everyone's going to die tomorrow. We like the calm down and relax and kind of get your stuff together and be ready for the simple power outage or the big storm that comes through, and the little things. Because like Jeff said earlier, take care of the little things, and the big stuff sorts itself out. Right.
That's right. Well, congratulations on your success of the shows. That's a lot of shows.
Oh, appreciate that, and it's been an honor having you come out on the show and chat with us and share your message of mindset and your wild stories, because I still those are some fantastic stories that again I couldn't ever imagine, but they just drive the message home.
Well, thank you, Eric. Thanks for having me.
So
Right.
I just have.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
It's okay. I just have one more question for you. And Eric kind of had it in there, and we sort of glossed over it, which is okay. But it's kind of the question of, how do you see the concept of preparedness in evolving in what's going on in the modern world, especially in light of the emerging threats? For me, I'm thinking of the technological side of it. I'm of the opinion that I don't think World War III, if it ever happens, is going to be done with nukes and bombs and all that. It's going to be cyber attacks. It's going to be attacks on power grids and attacks on that kind of stuff. I may be wrong. I may be out in left field. I don't really think I am, but what are your thoughts on that side of it?
Well, Jeff, I see it the way you do too, I believe. And we've heard Putin talk, and we've heard Chinese talk. It seems like the first thing that would happen is the grid would go down. We wouldn't have cell phone coverage. We couldn't contact other people. And for us, because we're so dependent on cell phones and technology, that's a big crushing step for us. But I do believe that'll be the first thing that'll happen. They'll take out some satellites, and we'll lose all our cell coverage and our power and our energy grid. And then that's a big crippling blow for us right there. People who don't think like we all do, they'll think the world has ended already. We'll go on because we don't have to rely on technology. But I think that's probably the first thing that'll happen. And the technology's already there. They've got the technology to do that. I don't think it would be Russia doing it, because Russia's been trying to be our friend for years. We keep turning our backs on them. And so now they just recently sided, buddy with China. That's a problem. And the Chinese have the technology to do that as well. And Iran and North Korea, the whole thing they're doing with BRICS, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The problem I see right now is that it looks like 95% of the world, and I've heard that a couple different places, is against Israel and what's going on in Hamas and Israel, but also against us now because of our backing to Israel. So now we have China and Russia that are closer than ever, with Iran and North Korea. And then, they've got the whole Muslim community, the Shiites and the Sunni, who also have always hated each other, but now they've grouped together because they have the common enemy as Israel and us back in Israel. So we have more threats than we've ever had before. And the problem is a lot of those have nuclear weapons pointed at us. Mm. So we do have a worry. And I do believe, and I don't want to sound like a fearmonger either, But I do believe every day is more dangerous than the day before. And our enemies are powering up against us. And for anybody to say this is a crazy topic, they simply don't know what they're talking about. We have to be prepared. Technology, it can go down, and it can go down quickly. We have a lot of enemies who can do it. If I lose my cell phone, I can't be crippled. I have to be able to go on without cell phone or without the energy. And I think that's how we should be thinking. Think worst case, be prepared for the worst, and hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst too, because I think is how we have to do it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. And just look at exactly what's going on right now. And it just kind of popped into my head that, the United States just are in the beginning stages of banning TikTok, and the debate, and everybody is literally losing their mind over the fact that they're not going to be able to watch a TikTok video. Like, hello,
Or just look at the recent what was it, AT&T outage, right? That was huge. Or we had that about a year ago where Rogers went down, a major cell phone carrier here in Canada, and everybody lost their minds. A bunch of the stores weren't able to process transactions because the network was down, and people were just completely lost, right? And that was just from like a 24-hour period of just the cell phone towers being down. We still had power, still had running water, still had all that things, but just the cell phones were down and people lost their minds over it. So yeah, being able to operate without those things, I believe as well, like Don had mentioned and Jeff's been touched on, is something that's very important in preparedness, because you're going to have to be able to do that, because those are going to be the number one things that are going to go first for sure.
And TikTok, of course, I heard today on the news, 5 board members, 2 of them are Americans, and America's trying to shut them down. Trump wanted to shut them down a long time ago, but that they're taking a direct feed of our information and getting it right to CCP, the Communist Party of China. But so does Google and all these other companies. They sell all our data. All our data is being sold under our noses anyways. We're not in a safe place anymore. We're not. Anybody can find out anything they want about where you shop, who your parents are, where they live, where they shop, where they get gas. It's all easy to find. And this is 20 years old, this information. I saw that CIA product once, and a person came in, he just picked some random people out of the audience. He knew everything about that person. That was 20 years ago. So all our secrets are sold, we know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did a whole episode on cybersecurity and touched on exactly that, how you're tracked and traced, and all your purchases and all your emails and everything's monitored. And there's a whole profile built around your everyday life, and you're already on a list. You may as well listen to a podcast.
I hope you don't get banned.
Oh, no. We haven't got banned yet.
Yeah. We will always find a way to get the message out, Don.
Yeah.
Episode 234, you can find on the darknet.
Yeah, it was just like Eric mentioned that we had that episode and we were talking about, and people were like, and we had a ham radio episode, and they were like, well, I don't want to get my license because I don't want them to know my address. Guess what?
Too late.
This, you don't think they don't know everything about you? Like, come on, wake up.
Personal tracking device.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, but thanks for catching that question, Jeff. That was a good one. So, but with that, again, Don, we appreciate you coming out tonight. We'll move along into the podcast challenge, and you're of course welcome to carry along with us to the end. We've got a couple other quick sections, and then we sign off.
Excellent.
So we'll move into the podcast challenge. So your podcast challenge for episode number 233 is check your mindset, adjust it as necessary. So, upcoming events. Terry, you want to talk about the annual Preppers Meet?
Oh, boy. Well, here it is. It's coming up July 11th to the 14th. Beautiful downtown Disborough, Ontario. And we've had a lot of new folks sign up to our Facebook page. So there's a lot of interest happening. A lot of new faces are going to be there this year. We're expecting a good crowd. We've been working diligently to get some kind of a schedule on to give people a flavor of what to look forward to. It's pretty tentative. It's subject to change. The times are completely irrelevant. It means the times don't mean nothing. We just the way the program was set up, we had to put a time in. So I just was knocking off a time that sounded okay. We'll spread them out a little bit, but yeah, that's don't take that schedule too seriously right off the bat. But the people that are on it are going to be there, and the topics that they're going to discuss are going to be there. So go to the annualpreppersmeet.com website and have a look at it. And I hope
looking forward to this year.
Yeah. Even Eric.
Sounds like I'm locked in now for Thursday, Friday. So I'll be there for 2 days this year. And shockingly, it's going to be ham radio and probably a little bit of shortwave listening too in the evening. So we're going to put two sessions together. But it's always a good crowd of knowledgeable instructors, except that ham radio guy. And lots of good information, lots of good knowledge, lots of good sessions, lots of good just general people willing to share information and help get you on a path of preparedness if you're not there, or help bolster a section that you're not so comfortable in. So it's a great weekend. It's reasonably priced as well. And
right on.
Come check it out.
And early bird tickets are still on sale right now, as a matter of fact.
$100 for the Thursday through Sunday. Can't go wrong with that.
And Don, if you're bored, come on up.
Okay. It sounds like fun.
Oh, we'd love to have you. Believe me, we'd love to have you.
Well, thank you.
All right, Jeff, you got a weather blurb?
I do. I'll keep it brief. So, obviously, we're in that flux of the year between the warm and cold. And with that, we unfortunately get into the severe weather. So last Thursday, there was a fairly significant tornado outbreak in the upper Midwest. So basically, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, they were the bullseye areas. As we talked about weather a bit in this, and I made comments about, preparing for the worst and hoping for nothing. These areas that were in the bullseye were actually not expected to get much weather at all. They were in an area that was in what was called a 2% hatch risk area, which is there's a 2% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of anywhere within that block. There were other areas that were in a 5% hatch risk. They got nothing. The area in the 2% got decimated. Several towns got flattened. There were, I believe, 5 total fatalities over those 3 states. I'm of the belief that this year is going to be a very, very active tornado season. So if you're anywhere within that so-called tornado alley or anywhere close to that, you need to be aware. If you don't have one, you really should get a weather radio that's going to give you the updates when severe weather warnings and stuff are issued. As we've all said, we've said it, knowledge is power. If you got a heads up that it's coming, again, if it doesn't happen, that's great. If it does and you don't know about it, I'm sorry, that's on you. So as the week progresses, we continue to see this clash between the warm and cold. And for the first few days of this week, the cold is going to win out. There's presently freeze warnings in effect in the deep south. Like I'm talking Arkansas, northern Mississippi, those areas. And believe it or not, they may see the coldest days of the winter season. And we're into the third week of March here. So long term, I'm watching the potential for another severe weather outbreak coming next weekend. It's going to target the Great Plains, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, kind of sort of the same area again. I think it will be a little bit more south this time. We're still a week away, so things can and usually will change in that kind of time frame. Pay attention again to your local forecasts. And if you follow our Discord, I frequently update weather stuff on the Discord. So pay attention to that. And as I always say, don't be scared, be prepared.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Quick shout outs to new Patreons, Kevin and Andrew. Appreciate you guys helping keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled around here, as the Patreons help cover the show, the cost of the show and hosting and all that fun stuff. So appreciate you guys helping out. With that, we will bring episode number 233 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the audio podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please submit a review. It does help other people find us and of course encourages the algorithm.
And we do record these shows live on YouTube and Facebook if we have to, for those who still have access to it. Ian. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. That will give you an alert when we are going live. If anybody wishes to reach out to me, you can contact me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
And you can reach me on the annual Preppers Meet Facebook page or at my email, terrylblackmore@hotmail.com.
And you can find me, the Frugal Gunny, on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, and CPP Discord.
All right, and Don, where can everybody find you?
My website's usfrogman with 2ns.com, www.usfrogman.com. And there's links to Twitter and social media on that.
Perfect. Awesome. You can get me at rapidsurvival.com on the live chat. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. So thanks for joining us. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe.
And keep learning.